It's always very difficult to give the last few words at the Scottish Assembly for Tackling Poverty. This is the fourth time I've done it, and it doesn't get any easier. But I'll give it a shot, and I also recognise that I'm the only thing standing between you and your bus or your train or however you're getting home today. So I'll also try and be brief. We've always talked about the Assembly as a process, and the EPIC project is coming to an end, sadly. But the process, I believe, isn't coming to an end. So what I want to say in the next couple of minutes is to reflect on some of the achievements that we've made over the 4 years of the EPIC project, to recognise some of those contributions that have been made to making those achievements, and to say a little bit about how we keep the process going. Maybe not exactly in this format, but how we keep the kind of process, the kind of discussions that we've been having, how we keep those moving along. Sattvat mentioned about making spaces for this kind of discussion, and that was, fortunately, didn't write this as I was sitting over there, or some of it I might have done, but I wrote that down last night. And one of the achievements I think that we've had with the Assembly is to carve out a new space in Scotland to allow for real engagement, real dialogue on issues of poverty and social injustice. And it's a space where people affected by social injustice, affected by poverty, are able to discuss and debate and eventually take action on the problems that matter. And to discuss and debate those issues in partnership with people who have the power and the influence to make changes. And I think that's an incredibly important space. We've demonstrated something over the last 4 years with the work that we've done in creating those kind of spaces. And it's not just the Assembly, there are other spaces that we've created. What else have we achieved? We've worked with policymakers on a range of issues. We've worked on health inequalities, child poverty, employability. We've created opportunities for activists to speak out in the press and TV, to talk about the real impact of poverty in their lives. There are some of those people with us in this room. Hazel, thank you very much again. We've established a new campaign. We've established the Stick Your Labels campaign, something that we've talked about over and over again over the last 2 days. We've established a campaign to challenge stigma. And I think that's one of the areas where we will look to do more in the future. And I think, importantly, we've also created real change. We've not just talked, we have actually created real change. I think some of us maybe heard earlier on in some of the workshops about the work that was carried out to lobby NHS 24 to change the way that we pay for phone calls. And so those phone calls to the new 111 number next year will be free from mobile phones. And that's down to some of the work that we did with one of the community activists, Caroline Mockford, who's, I think, still here today. All right. To make change, so it has been meaningful. It hasn't just been a space for dialogue. It's been about making real change. And I think perhaps the one that's most important, to me at least, is the work that we've done around the replacement for the social fund. We worked with a range of community activists, people from Fife Gingerbread, people from Scottish Drugs Forum and others, to look at what was needed to replace the social fund with the new Scottish Welfare Fund. And that work, I think, has led to real change, has led to more resources going into the new Scottish Welfare Fund. But I think perhaps of crucial importance is a change in the way that those services will be delivered, with the staff delivering those services more sensitised to the issues of poverty and the stigma and discrimination that people experiencing poverty and using those services often feel. And I think I could go on. That's not a long list, and I could go on, but as I say, I know you have your trains to catch. The main point is that whether it's through the research that we've carried out, the campaigning, the training, or the engagement, we've demonstrated the value and the need to have people who are directly affected by social injustice in Scotland involved in the decisions that affect them. That's our main achievement. That's the main lesson that we draw from this project and from this process. Now, before saying where next, because I think that's what I was slotted to say is what our next steps are, I want to do the usual thing of thanking some of the people that have been involved. I think particularly I want to thank the staff that have been involved. I thanked them profusely last year. I need to thank them a little bit more profusely this year, I think. I want to particularly thank Fiona and Catherine, who, especially over the last few months, have worked incredibly hard to make this event happen and to make a whole range of other things happen with the EPIC project. Fiona, Catherine. And also to Sarah Welford, who's not here, who was our previous policy and parliamentary officer, who really drove forward the Assembly in the first 3 years, and we thank her in her absence. But also all the other staff in the Poverty Alliance. I don't get too many opportunities to thank them all, so I'll thank them all now, to Robin and Poe, to Lynn and Eddie, and to Laura Darling also, who's a member of the EPIC team as well. And to Rosie, our volunteer, who's been here with us for the last 2 days as well. We have to thank the activists who've been involved in this project, and there really are too many to mention. You look at our evaluation reports and you'll see that. I hope the Big Lottery are listening. But there are a few people that we maybe need to just pick out. John Wood from Scottish Drugs Forum, who I worked closely with over the last few months, who's an inspiration. To Caroline, who we've already mentioned, to Christine Quigg, I think to all of the women from Fife Gingerbread who've done an incredible job over the last year, to Charlie Martin, who I think has also left us today. All of these activists, all of the work that we've done through EPIC is not possible unless it's through working with those activists, and I would like you to thank them in the usual way. And I'll come on and say a bit more about the organisations we work with, but they are also crucial in making the kind of changes and making the kind of actions that we've tried to make over the last 4 years with this project possible. So Child Poverty Action Group, Oxfam, One Parent Families Scotland, Save the Children, Scottish Drugs Forum, Fife Gingerbread, long list. I would like to thank all of them. And I also want to thank Jim, our chair, who is taking us through this again for the 4th time. Thank you very much, Jim. And also, importantly, I think to Ross and to Erin and to all the social reporters that have really added something to the Assembly this year and last year. Now, so where next? Next steps. I'm not, thankfully, going to give you a business plan or a strategic plan or anything like that. Nobody wants to hear that. I think there are few certainties in life. Death and taxes, I think, are the two that people most often quote. Unfortunately, I think we can be certain that the problems that we face, the problems that we've discussed in the last 2 days, the problem of poverty will increase in the next few years. Of that we can be certain about because of the decisions that are being made or not being made. And I think in that context, the need for the kind of discussions, the kind of actions that we've discussed here today will be needed more than ever. There'll be a need for us, as Sally said earlier on, for us to sing together, and I think for our voices to be amplified. But what is it that we're going to be singing about? What is it that we're going to be saying? And I think at the heart of what we need to be saying is we need to be talking about caring. We need to be talking about caring for those who have been left behind by our failed markets, as we heard about earlier on. We need to be talking about caring for those who have been written off, who have been ostracised, excluded. Ultimately, I think we need to be talking about how we care for each other in a way that lays the basis of the socially just Scotland that we all desire in this room. So what will the Poverty Alliance be doing? We'll be continuing to press the case for such a society, and we'll be organising our activities to help us get there. So we'll be continuing to work with the Scottish Government to find ways to bring that real experience that we've talked about, that real experience of poverty and the people who live that experience, to bear on the decisions that the Scottish Government make. We'll be increasing our efforts to challenge the negative attitudes that still exist about poverty. We'll be doing that through our Stick Your Labels campaign, but also through a variety of other work that we'll develop. We'll be continuing to work through the Scottish Campaign for Welfare Reform to challenge the dreadful decisions that are being made about our social security system. That's me changing the language about the way that we talk about our social security system there. No longer welfare. We'll be continuing to campaign for a living wage, not just for workers in the public sector, but for workers right across Scotland. Those are some of the things that we will be doing, but I think perhaps the most important thing that we need to do as an organisation is to continue to build our network, to work alongside all those organisations and individuals that want to see the kind of change that we've discussed here for the last 2 days. And to do that, we need your support. And this is where I turn into a salesman again. If you're not a member of the Poverty Alliance, I would urge you to join. It doesn't necessarily cost you anything, but I would like you to consider, I think there should be information in your pack, so I would like you to consider joining before you leave. And if not before you leave, then when you get home. At the end of last year's Assembly, my pledge was to find the resources to hold a 4th Assembly. I can see the staff team now looking at me with very worried looks on their face. I'm reluctant to make the same kind of pledge again, given the context that we're in. But I think the thing that I can guarantee is that we will work with everything that we have to continue these kind of discussions, these kind of debates, and to take the actions that we require to create a more socially just Scotland. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions over the last 2 days. It's again been an inspiration to be able to be part of those discussions. Hopefully see you next year, if not before. Thank you and safe home.